has gained strategic importance in recent years because the supply of these vital materials continue to be vulnerable to geopolitical tensions. And for all nations, including Turkey, securing a stable, sustainable, and diversified supply of critical raw materials is no longer a technical issue, but it has become a strategic necessity, and as well as has become a part of national security. So we should strive to ensure that critical minerals are not used as a tool of hostilities, but an area that should be pursued with sincere cooperation in mind. Because failing to do so will result in the inadequate production and supply of these material. And this scenario will only endanger the realization of future clean energy projects and our common fight against climate change. And as I said, I mean, it can also hinder defense and other high technology projects. Of course, I mean, international cooperation is essential to that matter if you want to strengthen transparency and enhance resilience. We must work that it does not become a new source of division, but rather a foundation for peaceful and constructive international cooperation. And also, of course, I mean, here as well, same as for the energy sources, gas, oil, I mean, that's for the critical minerals as well, diversification will be essential. And also, if a country itself possesses the necessary, some adequate reserves, exploration and investments should pursue. We will have to strengthen regional or like-minded alliances, form partnerships with neighboring or geopolitically aligned countries to create regional supply chains, fund exploration in underexplored regions or countries, I mean, form partnerships to that end. Promote recycling and circular economy. This is also one of the main points. Or accelerate research and development for alternative materials or technologies. Turkey, for instance, has become part of some of the international forums like the Mineral Security Partnership Forum. And we believe that it has members, I mean, from all corners of the world, and including developed and developing economies. So this diverse makeup, we believe, will help lead the discussions on the critical minerals to be focused on equitable access. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Can I ask a follow-up there? In your view, all of your points point to potentially a need for critical raw materials to be governed in a way that ensures all of these conditions are met. And so, do we need a global regulatory framework, do you think, for these raw materials, just as we have for energy? Do we need a global regulatory framework for critical raw materials, just as we have for energy?
Yes, true. I mean, we do need that at the global level, and also we need it at the national level. I mean, at the national level as well, taking into account the realities, I mean, in each country. I mean, the country will put, I mean, their priorities first, of course, I mean, and work on their regulations, but we will also need global regulation. I mean, it is to be negotiated as well. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to you, Minister Gil Pinto. Venezuela has, I believe, one of the world's largest untapped reserves of critical raw materials. And so in this time of shifting global alliances, how is Venezuela seeking to re-enter those supply chains and ensure its own independent strategy?
Thank you. I will speak in Spanish. Venezuela es un país con las mayores reservas de petróleo del mundo, más de 300.000 millones de barriles de petróleo están en nuestro territorio. Pero
Well, in our region, there is a huge reserve that was discovered, but this was not given by nature to us. The nature did not only give this to us. We see also other raw materials, traditional raw materials. And these are raw materials that are considered to be a bit peculiar. And in this time, the supply chains is not only valid in global level. The international conflicts, the fact that the economy has become an ideology, certain, distinctions, and also has changed, and the fact that the Western concept has changed, it shows us that this is not a geopolitical issue alone. This is also a security issue. This is quite clear to us. I will give you an example and I will give you this example in parallel to something. We have witnessed this during COVID-19. It's with, producing vaccines or having, equipment was not enough. It was also necessary to have an access to this securely. And we saw that the supply chain was blocked. And this is the same case. This goes for the raw materials too. And when everyone is trying to have their own technology, they needed more raw materials, and they faced other problems, which is one of them is the secure and stable provision of these raw material, and they experienced some difficulty in that. So the alternative to this, those who found an alternative to this, found a new way of doing business. And what we witness, there is actually a bipolar or multipolar system, and this also created different sides to the story. For example, BRICS. This is the one side that we hear a lot, but there are also other unions that have been formed in that regard. For example, Shanghai 5.
Follow up based on that. Given what you mentioned, geopolitical pressures and the security concerns, is Venezuela seeking new partnerships with partners in the global south or with BRICS?
Sí. Venezuela ha venido a desarrollar. Venezuela tradicionalmente,
Yes. Traditionally, Venezuela, since it is located in the Western Hemisphere, is dependent on the U.S. in terms of industry, in terms of raw material. But the supply chain is not secure for Venezuela, neither for the world. We are able to witness this more strongly today. And for the past 25 years, Venezuela has been working on developing new strategic partnerships, for example, with China. China is the leader of the world economy, and we are a strategic partnership with China. And in terms of energy, they are not our first partner, and we have changed that, transformed that. But in terms of technology or goods and service provision, China is our #1 partner, and we export to China. So these kind of partnerships increases the power of Venezuela. Of course, there are other regional solidarities or institutions, organizations. So regionally speaking, we have always prioritized to create partnerships in Latin America. We have important partners as Brazil in terms of technology and food production. We have important partnerships with Brazil, and they also need raw material. It is important for us, but this is not easy because we have to fight against big industrial polarities. So the more we fight against this, the more we will see the partnerships with other institutions or organizations such as BRIC. The more we do that, the more we will be able to create successful supply chains, secure and sustainable supply chains. And in multilateral organizations, we see certain rules, and they are at the point of discussion. And the power of industry lies in the U.S. And when this is going to disrupt all the rules that we know, then we will have to find other partners. This is not something new. We have been going through this for the past few years. I will repeat what I have said. Shanghai, or the partnership with Shanghai and the other countries have already started. And of course, we will need to create an alternative financial system, something that we don't know yet. I think that the world that will see this will pave the way for this change. Well, since the Industrial Revolution, the U.S. have focused on the Western Europe, but today, through new technology and AI, and also IT technologies, there are other countries who came forward. And countries are asking for more energy. So we are going through an interesting time. And Venezuela is thinking of protecting this energy, the supply chain, because as an energy producer, we need to have good relations with other producers. However, today, unfortunately, together with the commercial fights, commercial conflicts, we will have different polarities, and we are trying to parallel ourselves with that. This commercial equality needs alternatives, and this is going to be provided by the Southern Hemisphere.
Given everything that we've heard just now from Minister Gil Pinto, this is such an important race, this race for critical raw materials. We are moving to a green transition. Despite some changes in the US, the rest of the world is certainly moving in that direction. So given this, and given the damage ecologically that we've seen from extractive processes in the past, how is Botswana ensuring that this, because Botswana has key critical minerals, diamonds, I understand coal and some rare earths as well. And how is Botswana ensuring that this search for these materials safeguards the environment, protects ecological measures, and also ensures that local communities aren't exploited, given competition globally is really heating up?
Thank you very much, and greetings from the beautiful country of Botswana. We have a very unique, beautiful story to tell. As you would remember, as some of you would be aware, when diamonds were discovered in Botswana, Botswana was amongst the poorest countries in the world. And we have a story to tell in terms of how we managed the mining of those diamonds and how those diamonds were then utilized to develop the country, develop the whole country, and to where we are now in terms of us being a middle-income country. We always say that in Botswana, when you buy a diamond, you are not only buying a luxury product, you are enabling a student to go up to PhD, as I have. You are enabling an old, poor woman in a village to have access to good health and good amenities. So we have a story to tell of an enduring, mutually beneficial partnership. We believe that the way to go is for partnerships at two levels. Partnerships between the public and the private sector. As you have seen that we have a partnership that has endured over the years between the government of Botswana and a conglomerate called DBS. We also believe that there has to be partnership between countries, and I will elaborate what I mean. First, I think I need to also indicate that through this approach, we have 25%, for example, of the eastern part of Botswana that has been explored and mined. We have 75%, which is still unexplored in the western part of Botswana. And through partnerships and advancement of technology, we have been able to come up with 2 mines that are copper mines. But we have also prospects of other rare earth minerals, silver, cobalt, lithium, manganese, and we are saying to the world today that we are open for business. We want those partnerships to come through, and we also have tapped on the advancement of technology. We have what we call the mining cadastre, where they can apply for mining licenses online from the comfort of their countries. And we are saying to them, we have a proven track record. Last year, as many of you are aware, we had a seamless, peaceful transition of power. So your investment in Botswana is completely safe. So we are saying also that partnership between countries, and this is the point I wanted to raise, that if we have soda ash, for example, we do have soda ash in Botswana, but across the border in Zimbabwe, there is lithium. So if there is a collaboration, we get more value from our these raw materials, because if you put lithium together with our soda ash, you have what is called lithium carbonate, which then is a component that you use for car battery production. So you get more value because you have collaborated. And as I said, it's a collaboration between the private and the public, and a collaboration between countries, geopolitically aligned countries, neighbors, and as a result, I think the future then says to us that there is an interconnectedness between the need for us to have the need for these raw rare materials, but also to ensure and learn from experiential knowledge that we have in Botswana, that we have communities that have benefited from a properly mined and run mining industry.
And given that success story that you speak of about Botswana, how much does the country have to offer in terms of, you mentioned these strategic partnerships, but in terms of helping other countries who might be a little bit less behind Botswana in their search for raw materials and the building of that industry, how much can they learn from Botswana in terms of, I guess, particularly countries that might be fragile, vulnerable to conflict? What needs to be put in place to ensure the safeguarding of communities and those developing economies?
I think the important thing, and I think learning from our experience, has always been a strong, clear legal framework. We are clear that all minerals that are found in the country belong to the nation. And therefore, every part of the country benefits from the mining of those minerals. But I think also what is also important is the values that I just shared, believe in democracy, good governance, rule of law. All these are important in ensuring that at the end of the day, the people or the citizens have confidence in those that run the country, in knowing that they do these things for the benefit of all citizens. And I think I would also want to say that perhaps it's also important as we try and come up with a globally acceptable standard that ensures that those communities that will be displaced, for example, by the mining, they also feel that they are properly compensated or they benefit equally from the thing. So I think as we learn from Botswana's legal framework and arrangement, there are other perhaps frameworks and other jurisdictions that we can also tap from. But I think what is important at the end of the day is mutually beneficial collaboration between conglomerates, the private sector and the public sector, but also between countries to ensure that as you apply, as you will be applying through our mining cadastre to apply for mining licenses, you should also know that you are doing that because you are entering a partnership that should benefit you as an investor, but also benefit the people of Botswana who will warmly welcome you as you come to mine in Botswana.
Thank you, Minister Butali. I'd like to go to you, Minister Ikinche. Minister Butali is talking about these mining licenses in Botswana. Is Turkey looking to progress any investment opportunities, strategic partnerships with African countries, or alternatively, is Turkey looking to exploit its own raw materials, and how is Turkey making sure that these issues that we've discussed, ecological concerns, communities being protected, making sure those are being safeguarded?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think it's a bit all at the same time. I mean, all of the above, I mean, I would like to say, because Turkey will be engaging at the bilateral level with countries. And what we are seeing nowadays when it comes to the production and management of critical minerals, most of it is done through bilateral agreements, I mean, between countries. So Turkey also is looking into that. It has already engaged with some countries. And of course, I mean, Venezuela is one of them. Botswana will also be considered. I mean, of course, the African continent, I mean, will be considered. Central Asian countries, I mean, will be considered, are considered. And we are already in discussions with many of them. The most important thing, of course, I mean, as the distinguished minister, I mean, has underlined, it has to be done through mutual benefit. I mean, it has to be on the principle of win-win. So this is the most important. But we are seeing an increasing, though, I mean, the bilateral agreements, I mean, still are the most important instruments. We are seeing that the multilateral as well is arising. I mean, when it comes to the projects, I mean, in relation to critical minerals. And in Turkey, our Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources has just recently released its first critical and strategic minerals report. And this report essentially is identifying minerals which are at risk of facing supply shortages, and also which minerals are of strategic importance to Turkey. Of course, when it comes to some minerals, we do also have a large spectrum of minerals in Turkey, so we will be looking forward to develop them, to extract them with maybe some partnerships again, this time formed in Turkey. But at the same time, we will be looking outside as well through bilateral and multilateral means. Of course, I mean, environmental considerations here as well, in Turkey as well, I mean, are high on the agenda, I mean, as you have highlighted. And there again, what would be the most important thing is what we have talked about in the beginning, are the regulations. I mean, so the government, I mean, will move forward according to the regulations and the legislation, I mean, put in place, and of course taking into consideration the community's request as well. So it has been highlighted, private-public partnership as well will be essential, and we see that, we believe that the private sector will play the vital role, I mean, in the production and management of in the mining of critical raw materials, but the governments and the public sector will need to give the necessary support and guidance to incentivize as well the action in this field. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'd like to go back to Minister Gil Pinto. Given the recent news and current affairs that we're seeing in this space, particularly Donald Trump has his eyes on Greenland, and I don't think it's any secret that the reason for that is potentially because of the search for critical raw materials. And so, Minister, how important are partnerships between countries in ensuring that something like what is currently playing out in Greenland, where many of the residents of this country don't feel so good about the idea of being taken over by the United States, how do other countries that may be vulnerable to such interests, geostrategic and geological interests by the United States, protect themselves from such things happening?
Well, as far as we see, if we have a look at the politics in the United States, well, actually, these are making us really concerned. I'm not talking about the Greenland only, because Greenland is just the region for us. But just because of the topic that we are discussing here, Greenland is not that important. It is not just important because of the raw materials in this region, but also the Arctic region is there, very, very crucial for us. Well, because we are talking about a region which belongs to the whole universe, and we have some agreements. There's already agreements about this place. So our main concern should be about the regions itself. Well, currently, there are some agreements and contracts, conventions. We have to think about them. The parties under signing these documents should consider this, because if we have a look at the region and their intervention, technically speaking or industrially speaking, of course we are going to see repercussions globally. In terms of the sovereignty in the region, there will be many more repercussions, without a doubt. And in the UN Charter, everything is crystal clear. The sovereignty in the region and their own self-rights, their freedom, liberty, their own policies are determined by themselves. Everything is dependent on their own liberty. No nation is superior to another one. But here, today, we see the administration and management of the materials in the Greenland, or the management or administration of the Arctic region. These are concerning us a lot, because, as you all know, the world order is going to be jeopardized here, is going to be in danger. Well, it emerged in 1949, actually, United Nations. Well, why we came together here? We are here in order to prevent this kind of problems. We are here to prevent global problems occurring. It is not in between Denmark or the the United States of America, but this is taking the attention of everybody because it might happen in all other places in the world. Again, there is an intervention other than their own territories, and we should not allow them to do this. And Venezuela was a victim to this beforehand, and especially we are a victim of the laws enacted by the United States. We know their sanctions, we know the outputs of these. We hope that this issue is going to give an opportunity to understand the relations cannot be facilitated in the good way, in this way. And we have to respect the sovereignty of the countries, and we should respect the world order. Everybody, every nation should administer themselves. They can change their administration system in the way they want, and they are already peculiar systems according to themselves. And I'd like to mention this too. Multilateralism. Multilateralism is going to be the solution for these problems because each and every conflict could be solved in a multilateral way. In Venezuela, this is the policy that we conduct. There is mutual respect and multilateralism. This is what we defend. And in the United Nations, there is this charter, and we have an official group defending the UN Charter because we are trying to prevent this kind of things emerging. All the countries should protect their own resources. We should let them decide by themselves. And today, in the international decisions and regulations, this is already apparent. This is not only creating effects on the environmental aspects, but it is going to affect all the countries. It's going to affect the globe. There are conventions, contracts, agreements in order to prevent these problems. Well, this crisis is a multilateralism crisis that we have to prevent. As I've said beforehand, globalization is at the edge of dying, perhaps. I think we have to renew it, revitalize it. For 80 years, again, let's have a look at the United Nations. Now, this is 2025, and 2025 is a good year for us because many countries are not defending the world order that we know.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'd like to follow up there with Minister Butali. What are your thoughts there on Minister Gilpinto's comments that we're at a stage here that globalization is at the edge of dying, that we're seeing this fragmentation of the global order, and how much of a concern is that, especially in regard to these emerging and fast, speedily accelerating industries like that of critical raw materials? How much of a concern is that, particularly in regard to, as Minister Gilpinto mentioned, the sovereignty of nations whose critical raw materials are at risk of being exploited?
Thank you very much. I think for us, the saving grace will be that the world is so interconnected that if we are to adequately solve any problem, be it climate change, be it peace and security, we need each other. We need to be sitting at the table in order for us to have a chance at resolving those issues. So we believe that multilateralism cannot die because whether we like it or not, we will have to talk about finding solutions to these problems. That is what I call the interconnectedness. So the important thing as Botswana is that we believe the values that speak to multilateralism, values of good governance, values of territorial integrity, sovereignty, those remain important, they remain relevant today, and we believe that they should be the pedestal upon which we then launch into the future of rare earth minerals and their use and their exploration for mutual benefit in terms of the partnerships that I spoke about, the partnership between the private and the public, the partnership between different countries. And as countries invest more in research, R&D will be very critical, which is why, as Botswana, we have also moved in that direction. We have a Geoscience Institute, through which we believe the experience, the knowledge that we have gathered over years of mining can be shared with our fellow sister countries in the continent, in the region. But also we believe that through this research, advancement of technology, we have been able to, the reason why 75% of our western part of the country has remained unexplored, for example, is that it is sand covered. But with the advancement of technology, we have been able to find these prospects that I spoke about of zinc, silver, cobalt, lithium, manganese, but we have also managed to open 2 mines through the collaborations that I spoke about. We have 2 copper mines, new ones, 1 collaboration with China, 1 collaboration with Australia. So we are saying that these mutually beneficial collaborations are the way to go. And as I said, Botswana is ready to welcome the international community, the environment. As a government, it is our responsibility to create an environment that is conducive. And we believe that, as I said, the political atmosphere with the seamless, peaceful transition that happened in October, the atmosphere is very peaceful. We see Botswana as the gateway, not only to Southern Africa, but to Africa. And therefore, we are ready to take our place at the table in terms of leading in the conversation that must be had, which is how do we move this into the future in a manner that is mutually beneficial for our countries and our communities, but for the globe also.
Thank you, Minister Butale. I'd like to go to you, Minister Ikinche. Do you have any comments to make on, I guess, the concerns around the global order and how that is affecting this new industry, emerging industry of critical raw materials, this is particularly pertaining to, I guess, the United States, and what we're seeing is, I guess, moving into an age of disruption, where diplomacy seems to be not used so much. I mean, what is Turkey's concerns in that regard?
I think I will have to echo, what the Minister from Botswana has stated, that multilateralism, is here to stay. But at the same time, we will have to, multilateralism will have to be reformed as well. When we look to the global order. I believe that for most, in this room, the United Nations constitute the backbone of the multilateralism. But we are seeing maybe an inflation of agencies, institutions, and also the way, of the decisions are taken. For instance, what is striking is that you are witnessing a draft resolution being adopted in the General Assembly with more than 160, 70 support, and then nothing is ensuing. So this is, and this comes as a very big frustration for the whole international community. But on the other hand, you have some resolutions or decisions taken at the Security Council level, and this is something that that our president is also repeating. Quite often that the world is not limited to 5. This has to the new world order has to take into account the new realities on the ground. So that would be very important. And of course, this will have repercussions as well on different sectors, such as energy, such as critical raw materials. There as well, I mean, this new world order, I mean, has to be taken into account. And at the same time, I mean, you cannot just, as to some, statements made by the US or some other countries, I mean, you cannot just say something and, expect that it is done. It has to be designed on mutual understanding, on in a mutually beneficial way, dialogue, negotiations, and so international cooperation will be essential, and without, I mean, leaving space to hostilities or trying to create a domination by some. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed you nodding, Minister Gil Pinto. Do you have any further comments to make on that topic?
Sí, bueno, yo creo que respaldar un poco lo que hemos estado conversando esta mañana.
Well, I would like to repeat what I have said this morning. Frankly, if we want to close the gap in development of our countries, then we have to respect certain values. Sovereignty and multilateralism are two of these values, and these are also up to countries, and to make decisions making decisions also up to countries. On the other hand, the US is right now questioning these values. Right now, the US is disrupting all these values. It wants to dissolve these values, and while doing so, they're thinking about new development points. Let's put that aside. On the other side, we're talking about access to information, access to technology. In the past 20, 30 years, unfortunately, the gap in technology between developing countries and the developed countries is quite huge. At the beginning of the 90s, this gap was shorter compared to 1960s and 50s and 60s. However, when we look today, the technological gap between countries is huge. China, the US, are two countries that have the most advanced technologies. Therefore, the world has to work in order to reduce this gap. And we need the partnerships to develop, and therefore, that's why I'm underlying BRICS. This is the kind of partnership that can achieve this. The new financial order is also something that we need to consider. The IT developments is also something that is affected by this. I'm talking, for example, US dollars is dominant in affecting the economies of other countries. And therefore, the new trade methods must be developed by countries. This is what we are also supporting. And therefore, multilateral partnerships are very important in order to reduce the technological gap between countries. All of these will pave the way for an equal access to resources, and it will also allow us to have equal access to materials.
Yes, and I'd like to pick up on, excuse me, that point that you've made, that gap between developing countries and developed countries that we do see now. For countries like Venezuela, for emerging economies in the world that traditionally may have been suppliers of raw materials but left out of the downstream value chain, what strategies need to be pursued to ensure that countries like Venezuela ensure that they benefit in terms of job creation, fair value capture from the exploitation of the resources, and making sure that it doesn't deepen the inequalities that you talk about?
Yo quiero insistir, la única forma es
Well, I will once again reiterate what I have said. There's only one way to do, one way to go. We need multilateral partnerships based on equality. We cannot have unequal developments. This has caused conflicts. We have seen this in industrial revolution, and we saw this with the war industry, the development in the war industry, and we see this in technological development. As the deputy minister has mentioned, yes, developments in technology is important. However, within the new order, we need to respect the existing values, and we need an alliance between countries. Of course, we need to do that by respecting sovereignties. We have new organizations that are being formed in order to face these problems, and they are sine qua non to what is happening right now. We are quite optimistic right now looking at the situation, because the industrial powers and the military powers and IT powers needs actually a new partnership. I would like to repeat that: new BRICS. We need new BRICS. We need new South alliances. Both Turkey and Africa. And as you know, the African Union is trying to achieve this, and we're trying to create regional alliances in Africa. And this will, of course, create the new information, and it will also allow access to information. This is the only way to go.
Thank you so much. I think this session is an hour long, so I think we're entering the final 10 minutes. So I'd like to go to you, Mr. Minister Butale. In terms of, the very reason that we need many of these critical raw materials is for the green transition, which is necessary for us to do in terms of planetary security to protect us from the impacts of global warming, of climate change. And so do you think enough consideration is being given to the environmental and the ecological impact of mining these new raw materials? Given that Botswana has a long history of mining, as you say, are you confident that we are learning from our mistakes of the past and recognizing that we need to prioritize the environment in order to all thrive?
Thank you very much. And maybe before I get onto that, just to say that, as my colleagues have been saying, all these multilateral institutions, we need to reimagine them. We need to have a look at them with a fresh perspective to say, how do they best serve this future that we envision? And I think reform is critical, and reform in the manner that ensures that we do away with exploitation. And I want to say this, that exploitation, like secrecy, is corrosive. When you don't have transparency, when you don't have good governance, you have a propensity now to move towards conflicts, and then the peace and security that we so desire across the world is compromised. So when communities are exploited, that's when there are upheavals and protests and all those things. So we need to reimagine these institutions to ensure that we do away with these things that we know have not served the world properly. But I think in terms of the transition to renewable energy, I believe that we need to have honest conversations around how do we balance the need for emerging economies to industrialize and the need for us to then transition away from or towards renewable energy. I mean, countries like Botswana, we have vast, huge potential in terms of solar energy, for example, and we have invested a lot of resources towards that. And I think there has to be this conversation, this balance, delicate balance between the need to industrialize and now the need to then move towards renewable energy. And this has to be done in a manner that, as I said, is not prohibitive, but is also it also takes into consideration the need for us to industrialize. So as Botswana, we have, and we are taking all the steps that are necessary to ensure that we move with the world. But as I said earlier on, this can only be possible through collaboration. It can only be possible through conversations that takes into consideration material conditions in developing countries and developed countries, and we find a balance.
Thank you, sir. Minister Ikinche, I'd like to ask you a follow-up on this. Is it your view as well that there is enough being taken into account in regards to ecological protections, environmental protections, as we move towards this green transition?
It's a difficult question. I mean, when you say enough, I mean, I think that especially when we take into account, I mean, the dangers, I mean, of the repercussions of the climate change, and but at the same time, the geopolitical conjuncture that we found ourselves in, the economic difficulties, I mean, the challenges we are facing when it comes to the supply chains. I very much hope, I mean, first of all, as a citizen, as a world citizen, that those concerns, I mean, with regards to environment, will be taken into account. And also, we are seeing, of course, I mean, this is the aim is to fight, I mean, against climate change, but at the same time, we are talking about, while doing that, we are talking about a total change in the production schemes. So it will not be an easy, it's not an easy target. I mean, that's, there are industries, I mean, which will have to change completely, I mean, in the making. So, and while doing that, of course, I mean, critical minerals in that matter as well, I mean, will be essential. Their extraction will be essential. So the mining industries, I mean, while we were talking about fight against climate change, normally we would have talked about diminishing, I mean, the mining industry. But here we are talking about increasing it, I mean, for different purposes. So here, really, I mean, the balance will be very important to maintain, and in that matter, a country solely will not be able to achieve it. So that's why, I mean, international cooperation and international collective decisions and with a constructive approach will be very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that just about wraps us up. So thank you so much, all of you, for your time and your attention. And thank you so much to my excellent panelists, Minister Butale, Minister Gil Pinto, and Minister Ikinche. Thank you for such an interesting and compelling conversation.
You should.
I don't have a card, unfortunately. Please give me one of yours. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, they're asking for a group photo.
Oh, yes.